Hey crafty friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to share a tool that I made myself that I am loving because I've been making a lot of card sketches. So far I've got this little album. It's got 48 different card sketches that I created for myself. So on days that I'm not feeling very inspired, I can pull this out and flip through it and find something different or something that's kind of perfect for whatever stamp set I want to play with for the day. So I've got these fabulous sketches and I've created actually a digital version of this, and I use both of them. I love both of them. So I've got the sketches all printed out and I'm loving it. In order to create that though, I created for myself a layering guide, and I've got this old stamp case and I created an insert for it. It says layering guide. So I have several of these that I have created. I've got a stamp chamois, for example, and I just changed what this is so that I can look at it, and I'm going to be labeling the edges as well so that when they're on my shelf I know which case I'm grabbing. So this is a really useful way to organize your stuff. Like, you can purchase these at Stampin' Up! As well. I think they come in sets of 3. So it's really nice to have, and it stores this perfectly. So I created this little layering guide. Pulled out 9 pieces of cardstock that I had in my stash that were kind of just random pieces that I got either in old craft kits or they were left over from like pre-Stampin' Up! Days. So these weren't Stampin' Up! Colors, and they were just sitting on my shelf and I really had no plan to use them. So I pulled out 9 different colors, one sheet each of 9 different colors, and I just started cutting them down. And I started with 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which is an A2 size card. So this is the size of an A2 card that I normally make. And then I just went down 1/8 of an inch from there all the way down. And the purpose of this, I have so many things I like to use this for. Like the first purpose was so that when I was creating the card sketches, and I was trying to decide, how big do I want to layer, like how much space do I want around the edge. That is actually, I found that actually hard to visualize. So I thought, if I had something I can manipulate, so I created basically my own manipulative here, and I love it. So if, let's say that I'm starting out with the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card, and I want something sort of in the center, so maybe I pull out this one and put that down so I can see what this card would look like with this size of a piece of designer series paper or white cardstock or something. I can see exactly what it would look like. I don't have to just imagine. I can actually lay it out now, and I actually really like that. So that's one great use for it. And I numbered, when I got all done making these, I numbered the pieces. I started with number 1 for the smallest. I ended up having 19 pieces altogether without So I went from 1 to 19, so I could quickly put them in order without having to mess around too much, because sometimes when you're just trying to put things in order, you can't tell which thing is just slightly larger than something else. And I also went down in color order, so that was kind of nice as well. And this worked out really well, so I thought I would share this with you. Now the other thing, one of the other things I like to do with it is when I get a stamp set, for example, let's say I have something like, let's say you pull out something like this Everyday Details this Everyday Detail stamp set, and I want to use this one right here. So I need to know, I can measure it on my thing here, but again, it's nice to actually be able to hold it here, and then, when you're getting down to like eighths, you can pull out a couple of different sizes and decide which size. Oh, see, that's even really big. And you can pull out a couple smaller sizes, and you can play around with the size that you want, just like that. So I love being able to try things out here. And the same thing is true with my punches. If I'm not sure what size one of my punches is, I can pull out my layering guide and figure out how big of a sheet of cardstock I need to look for in my scrap pile, or how big of a sheet of cardstock I need to cut off a new piece of cardstock. So there's lots of different ways to use this. So I used it for designing my cards and the layers. I use it for figuring out how big I need a panel to be to fit a certain size card, and so forth. So I actually really have been enjoying this tool. This is actually getting used more than I imagined it would. 1/8 inch less in width and in height for each different panel size, and so they kind of like nicely go down, and they're all sized to layer nicely together. Then there are other times where I wanted different sizes. Like one of the sizes I found myself using frequently was 3 inches by 5 inches, which wasn't a card panel size that actually layers with an even border all around it with an A2 size card. So I actually cut that panel down. And as I find other sizes that I really like to have on my cards, I'm creating little templates for them. I also went ahead and created some different die cuts and stuff just to see, what size circle do I want on the front of this card, and what size, will the heart I have work, and here's smaller circles. So I started cutting out different shapes and different sizes of things, and I did the same thing with sentiment pieces to see, what size sentiment I might want to include. That was actually the trickiest part. So I have a couple here that I have the measurements written on that I find myself using quite a bit. And then I have this strip that's 1/2 inch wide, and I just marked it off in 1/2 inch segments here so that I can actually just hold it up and decide, like hold it up to something and see, oh, how wide do I want that sentiment to be? So these little templates have really been very helpful for me. So I just have a little old, this is from a package of sponge daubers that I got a while back, and I'm just storing these little template pieces that don't go with my layering guide itself inside here, and then I just pile them on top and store them in my layering guide. So it's pretty simple to do. So you just pull out 9 different pieces of cardstock and then start cutting. And I started cutting with the largest size to the smallest size. When I was all done, this is pretty much what I had left over. This right here. Like, these were my leftover bits. And this is actually going to be enough for me to create a second set of these. So I've got all of these here, and I'm going to start with this one. Let me see how many pieces are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There should be plenty of these here. So I'm going to start with the largest size and cut this down. So I'll show you exactly what I did. And you need a marker. My favorite markers to write with, I like the bullet tips of the Stampin' Write markers, and you can buy just a basic black. So I have like 5 of these, 4 or 5 of them. in my stash because I use them for everything. I use them for journaling and all of that. So, all right, so I'm going to cut this down. And let's see, I'm going to cut this down to, so an A2 size card is going to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So that's the first one, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'll cut that piece down. And I'm going to write that here. Okay, I'll number them when I'm all done. And then I'm going to put this piece down. Actually, I'm going to put these two pieces together. And I'm going to put this down in kind of in order. So I'll take the second piece. So I'm going to go 1/4, or excuse me, not 1/4. I'm going to go 1/8 inch shorter because I like my layers to be either 1/8 or 1/4. Like sometimes I just want a peak of a color hanging out. Sometimes I want a little bit more. And because I'm making this layering guide, if I want an even larger border, I can play with the layers to see what border exactly do I have like pictured in my mind as I'm designing this card. So I really like this. All right, so 1/8 inch smaller. So 1/2 is 4/8. So I want to go to 3/8. So I'm going to cut this down. And then 4 1/4. So 1/4 is 2/8. So I want to go to 1/8. So this is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I'll put that down on top of this one. So if I were to layer these two together, like you can see right there, that just gives me a sliver of a border around. Sometimes that's what I'm looking for. And I'll put this on top of that, so that when I go to do the next layer, I can do them in order again. So they'll be the same order. I found that kind of appealing to my eye. So I want to go 1/8 inch smaller than that. So I want to go 5 2/8. 2/8 is actually 1/4. And then 4 1/8. So 1/8 inch smaller is 4. So this is 4 by 5 1/4. And I'll write that on here before I forget it. Okay, so now I've got this one, and if I take these two, they're only 1/8 inch, so I should have that same tiny border all the way around it like I did the first time. But then if I put this one on top, there's a 1/4 inch difference. This is actually my favorite border, the 1/4 inch difference. So it looks more like that. So you can see you get more of a border around the edge. So it allows you to play with the pieces. So you can, use your layering guide pieces to figure out what size layers you need to cut from your paper. That way you don't make a mistake, and have to recut your good papers all the time. Like, these are not my favorite papers. These are papers that have been sitting on my shelf for a while. Okay, again, I'm going down 1/8 of an inch. So for 1/8 inch smaller is 3 7/8. Then I have 5 1/4. 1/4 is 2/8, so I want to do 5 1/8. And by doing it like this, I'm getting pieces that will fit with an even border all along the top, the bottom, and the two sides for an A2 size card. So I need 3 7/8 for this dimension. So 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. Okay. Then I'm going to take the next largest leftover. Really, you only need a half a sheet of 9 different pieces of paper, and you could probably actually use less sheets of paper if you only want to make one. Okay, so I need this to be 5 1/8 inch smaller this way. I always start with the largest dimension cutting and then go to the smallest. 3 7/8 is 3 6/8. 1/8 inch smaller is 3 6/8. I can't speak. 1/8 inch smaller is 3 6/8, which is 3 3/4. So this is going to be 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Okay, and the next one is 1/8 inch smaller than 5 is 4 7/8. And then 3 3/4 again is 3 6/8. So I need to go to 3 5/8. So that'll be 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. And like, I like writing the dimensions so that I have the width then the height. Like, you do what you like to do. This is how I like to write it. Although I'm cutting it in the other way. I'm cutting the larger dimension first. So 4 7/8, I need 4 6/8, which is 4 3/4. And I know that I got this paper for free. It's so bright. I don't even remember what I ever used it for. I just remember it was free. So 3 5/8, 1/8 smaller is 3 4/8. 4/8 is 1/2, so this is 3 1/2. By 4 6/8, which is 4 3/4. Okay, so 3 1/2 is 4 3/4 is 4 6/8. So the next height I need is 4 5/8. And then 3 1/2 is 3 4/8, so I need 3 3/8. And I just keep going like this. So this is 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. Okay, and then I'm down to this one. 4 5/8 would be 4 4/8 or 4 1/2. 4 1/2. 3 3/8 is 3 2/8, which is 3 1/4. So 3 1/4 by 4 4/8, which is 4 1/2. Okay, now I'm down to the next size, and you can kind of check your work by just tapping everything into the corner, and you can see I have pretty even borders here around the top and the bottom. I've lined up the left edge and the bottom, and along the top and the right hand side is what I mean to say I have pretty even borders. So I know I'm on the right track here. I haven't cut anything wrong yet. So now I'm going to take this pile, I'm going to flip these pieces over, and as I go through this I'm going to put those longer strips to the side. Okay, so 4 1/2, how big is this? So this, okay, so this isn't enough to cut the next size I need, because 1/8 inch smaller than 4 1/2. This is 4 4/8, so I'm going to cut this at 4 3/8. I'm going to put that aside. 4 3/8. 3 1/4 is 3 2/8, so I need 3 1/8. This is actually a really good way to get comfortable with your trimmer also, if you're not comfortable with the 1/4 and 1/8 sizes on your trimmer. So 4 1/2 is 4/8, so this is 3/8. So I'll put that one down. So the next one, 4 3/8, I need 4 2/8. 4 2/8 is 4 1/4. And I have enough here to do 4 1/4. I just need to trim a tiny bit off the top there, and this is going right in the garbage. That much I can't use for anything. So 4 1/4, 3 1/8, 1/8 inch smaller is 3. So this will be, oops, wrong end of my marker here. So 3 by 4 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to keep this one because some of the smaller pieces actually are smaller than that. Okay, so 4 1/4 is 4 2/8, so 1/8 smaller is 4 1/8. And then I'm going to turn this 3 inches, 1/8 smaller is 2 7/8. So this is 2 7/8 by 4 1/8. Okay, I will keep this. Okay, so the next one is going to be 4. And 2 6/8. 6/8 is 3/4. So it's 2 3/4 by 4. Okay, now this one is 1/8 inch smaller than 4 at the largest measurement, so that's 3 7/8. And then 2 3/4 is really 2 6/8, so I need 2 5/8. So 2 5/8 is right there. So 2 5/8 by 3 7/8. Okay, now I'm down to this nice big square piece. Okay, so 3 7/8, I need to go 3 6/8, which is really 3 3/4. And then 2 5/8, I need 2 4/8, which is 2 1/2. So this is 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. Now some measurements that I'm converting when I think about what my next layer needs to be, I actually look at this and think, okay, 3/4 is 6/8, 1/2 is 4/8. So you have 1/8, then you have 2/8, which is 1/4, then you have 3/8, then you have 4/8, which is 1/2, then you have 5/8, then you have 6/8, which is 3/4, and then you have 7/8. So that's what I'm doing there. Because when I'm measuring, I like to measure in quarters and then in between quarters I'll measure those in eighths. Like I don't look at this and think, oh, that's 2/8. I look at that and think, oh, it's 1/4. So if you're like me, you're converting these as you go, to write them down on this and to figure out which layer you want next. So this might be helpful for you, just having a little conversion chart next to there so you don't have to think about it. Some days your brain is just tired. So I'm going from 3 3/4, which is 3 6/8. So I need 3 5/8. There we go, which is halfway between 1/2 and 3/4. Then 2 1/2, 1/2 is 4/8, so 2 4/8 is what I used here, so I need 2 3/8 for the next one. 3/8 is halfway between 1/4 and 1/2 on my trimmer. Now my trimmer goes down by 1/16, but I wasn't going to measure things in that. I'm never going to do layers that are 1/16 inch apart. It wouldn't even be worth it. Okay, so 2 1/2 was 2 3/8 next, and 3 3/4 is 6/8, so that's 5/8. So think in steps if you have to. That's exactly what I do. All right, 3 5/8, 1/8 inch smaller is 3 4/8. 4/8 is 1/2, so 3 1/2. And then 2 3/8, 1/8 inch smaller is 2/8, which is 1/4. Okay, so this was 2 1/4 by 3 1/2. Okay, I still have this, so 2 1/4 and 3 1/2. So this will fit this way. 3 1/2 is 3 4/8, so I'm going to 3 3/8. And you can see I'm just taking my time. 2 1/4 is 2/8, so I need to go 2 1/8. So I'll do this one. So I have 2 1/8 by 3 3/8. Perfect. Okay, so I need one more layer because my smallest layer is going to be 2 by 3 1/4. So let's see, can I do this color? Is 3 3/8, so I need 3 2/8, which is 3 1/4. And then I have 2 1/8, so this needs to be 2. So this is 2 by 3 1/4. All right, so if I move my trimmer, and I bang these all into the corner, just like this, then you can see I have pretty even edges all the way around. This one's not. And if I don't, it's because something didn't tap into the corner far enough. There we go. Just like that. So easy to create this. Now I have a handout on my blog at stampingimperfection.com that is free to create the layering guide. And I'll have all of the measurements for each one of my layers there. And if you want to go down farther, just keep doing this, because sometimes, like if you go down farther than this, you might want to use those as sentiment strips. So I do have some sentiment strips already like cut with measurements on them that I do use, and I will include this conversion guide for 8ths to quarters, so you can actually have that as well, because that is helpful on days your brain is a little tired. You don't want to think about that. So if you want the layering guide handout and instructions with all the measurements already thought out for you, and the conversion guide from eighths to quarters. You can get that on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. If you're looking for some paper supplies, you can check out my Stampin' Up! Store at shopwithkim.net. So I hope that you enjoy this, and there's lots of ways you can use this layering guide. I just gave you a couple of ideas, but I find it on days where I'm stuck, having that book of sketches, card layouts already like thought up in advance, and having the layering guide in case I need to change up a layer or something, so I can play with these on my desk with my stamps and my sentiment strips and my punch pieces. I can do that pretty easily to design a card. So I love it, and that allows me to use exactly the size of card stock I need for the stamps that I am using to create the card, and then I don't have a ton of waste. And these scraps will get used in new card sketches, and these were card stock pieces I wasn't going to use anyway. So that is that. I would love to hear what you think about this tool below. And also I have some of those card sketches available on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. So thanks for watching, friends. I would love it if you give this a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe. Click the bell to get notifications every time I upload a new video. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you find time to be creative today.